So this is a piece I wrote for my senior thesis last fall. I'm just going to jump in. There's a couple excerpts that I'm reading, one from the very beginning, one from sort of the middle, and one towards the end. And the piece is called Long Weekend. Before I, 15 skin and bones glasses, woke up today in the alternate body of my alternate self in an alternate universe, I lived alone with my dad, who's not really my dad. This weekend, Abby, 32, short, red hair, zits that have lasted longer than they do for most people, came up to visit, and last night she and Dad, 61, bald, had a fight. Now Dad's gone, and Abby's no longer Abby. Before this weekend, most of the things I knew about Abby came from Dad. For instance, Dad says Abby's not built to care for things, and that's why she left when Mom died. Of course, Mom wasn't really my mom, just like Dad's not really my dad. They're my grandparents, and I call them Mom and Dad because Abby had me 10 years too early. When Abby showed up 3 days ago, I was the one who let her in, and this threw her off, I think, because she was probably expecting to see Dad first. Anyway, her head snapped back real fast when I opened the door, like someone had poked her in the eye. "Dad here?" asked Abby. She had a large duffel bag and a backpack, and I responded by turning around and yelling "Dad" back into the house. Dad goes to bed real early most nights, and it was already 10 o'clock, so when he came down, he was wearing a white t-shirt and an old pair of flannel pants. He didn't have any shoes on, and the first thing Abby did when he appeared was stare down at his yellow toes. Dad gave Abby a hug, then told me to help my sister with her suitcase. I tried to pick it up, but the thing was a little too heavy for me, which caused Abby to laugh some and shake her head and say, "I'm sorry." Abby and Dad hugged again, and then Dad went back to bed, leaving me and my sister, who's not really my sister, alone sitting at the kitchen table. I'm writing this journal because, like I said, I somehow switched places with me from another universe. That may sound unfortunate, but I'd say I'm actually pretty lucky given what happened to Abby and Dad. At least I landed in the right body. The switch happened this morning, and I was woken up by my ears popping. I think the sensation was caused by my soul landing in alternate me's brain. I'm not sure where alternate me's soul went, but I'm assuming he ended up in my universe. The first thing I noticed was that the smell of the air had changed, and that's because the ocean in this universe smells different, although I can't place my finger on what that difference is. The second thing I noticed was that my hair was a bit longer and the zit on my forehead had disappeared, only to be replaced by a slightly bigger zit on my chin. The third thing I noticed was that Dad was screaming. When I found him, he was standing in the hallway, staring down at his crotch. "Having a penis," said Dad, "is not nearly as much fun as you'd think." "What's going on?" asked Abby, emerging from a room wrapped in a blanket. Dad looked up at Abby and blinked a couple times. "I'm you," he said. "You're who?" asked Abby. Dad didn't answer, and instead he kneeled over and started to dry heave. When he was done, a little bit of liquid dribbled out of Dad's nose and hung in the air a bit. "I'm not Dad," Dad said. "I'm me. I mean Abby. I mean somehow I got him Dad." Dad, who was also Abby but not really Dad, grabbed hold of the Abby who was just herself. "Help me, Dad," Abby whispered. "Leave me alone," said Abby. She pulled away and ran out of the room. "The ocean smells funny," I said, but Dad Abby didn't hear because Dad Abby was already running after Abby. "I'm you," said Dad Abby to Abby. "I have a big ugly mole under my left breast. Sometimes I repeat the Lord's Prayer to myself for good luck." The front door slammed open and I turned to the window to see Abby running across the yard with Dad Abby in pursuit. I pushed back the curtain and stuck my head outside. "Where's Dad?" I yelled. They both stopped running. "He's right there," yelled Abby, pointing at Dad Abby. "No, he isn't," I said. Abby sat down in the grass, pulled her knees in real close to her chest, and told us that we were both crazy. She then asked if we wanted any coffee. It was a cool morning, and we all sat around the kitchen table, clutching our mugs real tight and breathing in the steam. "We can't both be me," asked Abby. Dad Abby took a sip of coffee. "Well, I'm Abby," she said. "So am I," affirmed Abby. They both turned to me. "But you're still you?" asked Dad Abby. I rubbed the zit on my chin. "I'm a little different," I said. That night, me and the two Abbies ordered out for pizza and ate in front of the TV. Dad Abby complained because no matter what she did, she couldn't get comfortable. It hurts my legs across my legs like I used to," said Dad Abby, glancing over at the Abby who had her right leg pulled up tightly over her left leg, seeing Dad Abby staring at her Abby uncrossed. "Sorry," said Abby, "it's just how I normally sit." This morning, to find that things were just as mixed up as they were yesterday. "What if it's permanent?" asked Dad Abby at breakfast while wearing an old t-shirt and a skirt that barely covered Dad's knees. "Well, if it is," said Abby, "you're going to have to stop wearing my clothes." Dad Abby leaned back in her chair and groaned. "But it's hot, and Dad doesn't have any shorts." I told him that Dad had plenty of bathing suits, but Dad Abby just rolled her eyes. "I tried one on earlier," she said. "And that liner? No thank you. I'm already cramped enough down there." "Well," said Abby, "we're going to have to start adjusting if all this doesn't turn around." "But that's the thing," said Dad Abby. "I don't want to adjust." This is from later in the piece. But the day before the switch, back when Abby was still Abby and Dad was still Dad, Abby told me the name of the boy she had me with. I was sitting on the couch watching TV when Abby walked into the kitchen and began pulling things down from the shelves and clonking them on the counter. "I'm making a Goombay smash," said Abby. "It's a summer drink. Watch." She poured the rum into a glass, then tipped it into the blender along with a few handfuls of ice. She then added a little bit from a clear bottle and dumped in a whole lot of orange juice on top. She pressed start and the blender did its thing. All the while, Abby kept her eyes fixed on me. "It doesn't taste right without pineapples, you know," she said, smacking her lips on the Goombay smash. I didn't know, but said yeah anyways. She smacked her lips again and put on a big straw hat. "Come outside for a bit." She didn't wait for a response, but just walked up the sliding glass doors and onto the porch. Grabbing hold of 2 lawn chairs, she pulled them onto the lawn and into the sun. She sat down in one and motioned with her drink for me to follow. "So you finished 9th grade, said Abby. "I just finished 8th grade, but not in my head." "You like high school?" And out of my head again. "That's good," she said. "I hated it. What's your favorite class?" "I'm not actually in high school," I said. More silence. "Well, what are you in?" 8th. Abby scrunched her eyebrows. "How old are you?" she asked. 15. "When I was 15, I was going into 10th. I shrugged my shoulders and told her that I stayed back a year. "You're smart though, aren't you?" said Abby. "Like what kind of grades are you getting?" "I don't know," I said. "A's and B's and C's." "Mostly A's, I bet," said Abby. She held out her drink. "Want some? It's pretty weak, so it tastes good." I shook my head and she finished the rest. "How's Dad?" asked Abby. "Not too sad?" I shake my head. "I'd call him more, it's just that his pauses are too long on the other end." "You got a girlfriend?" "Not really. You either have a girlfriend or you don't." "Then I don't." "You should get one." She tipped up the cup, knocked the ice stuck on the bottom into her mouth, and began to chew. "That's bad for your teeth," I said. "Don't think so," said Abby. She knocked the cup over her mouth again to get the last few bits. "Sam Andrews," she said. "That's the name of the boy I had you with, in case you were curious." "Oh," I said. The girl who had me smiled, looking down at her cup and shook it, but there was no more ice. "I told Porter about Sam," said Abby when Dad got back from his run. He had a sweaty hand towel draped over his shoulder and was eating a sandwich. "All right," said Dad. He slowly wiped his mouth with his napkin and asked me what I thought of that. "I'm fine," I said, even though that wasn't really the answer to his question. "All right," Dad said again. Then he cleared his plate, threw out his half-eaten sandwich, and went upstairs to take a shower. This is from pretty much near the end of the piece. Today at breakfast, Abby announced that she was going to try to be Dad, at least for now. "I mean, I'll still be me, Dad," Abby said. "I'll just be Dad too, you know, around other people and stuff." "You'll need to learn to walk different," said Abby. Abby frowned. "What's wrong with the way I walk?" Abby stood up and walked across the room. "You walk like this," she said, motioning towards her swinging hips. "Men don't walk like that." "Some men do," said Abby. Abby shook her head. "Not Dad." Abby stood up and tried walking across the room with his hips fixed in place. With her hips fixed in place. "Is that better, Dad?" Abby asked. "You look like Frankenstein," I said. "We'll work on it," said Abby. Last night I woke up crying. The next morning I tried to teach Abby how to shave. "You're not pressing down hard enough," I said as Abby lightly slid the razor over her shaving cream covered neck. I'm afraid of hitting Dad's Adam's apple," said Abby. "It's just so big and the skin's so soft, and oh damn, I cut myself. A short cold of blood ran down her neck, mixing with the white shaving cream and landing in 2 little gray drops on the marble sink. I ripped off a piece of toilet paper and handed it to her. Put a piece of this on the cut. The blood will hold it in place." "How long have you been shaving anyway?" asked Abby. I shrugged my shoulders. "About 3 years, I think." "Is it always this bad?" "Sometimes. I'm not that good at it." Abby leaned in real close to the mirror and stared at her face. "What would you think if I grew a beard?" she asked. "I've never really liked beards on guys, but now that I am a guy, I'm beginning to see the appeal." "I miss Dad," I said. Abby turned away from the mirror to look me in the eyes. She was wearing a blue bathrobe and pink slippers. "Of course you do," said Abby. That afternoon, the 3 of us decided to have a funeral for Dad, even though he wasn't dead, but just living in another universe. "What should we bury?" asked Abby. "I feel like we should have something to bury." We decided to bury an old shoebox full of what we remembered about Dad. We filled it with little notes that said things like, take snaps on Saturdays, and likes tea but not coffee. We put in a couple of pictures as well. Dad at his wedding, Dad on a boat, Dad as a little kid with ice cream smeared on his face. We had a couple of beach shovels in the house, but they weren't that good in real dirt. After we dug about a foot down, Abby said that would be fine because there wasn't actually a body for any animals to get. Taking the shoebox, we placed it in the hole. "Someone should say something," I suggested. Abby cleared her throat and began, "Goodbye for now, Dad. We'll see you again when everything goes back to the way it was." "I think Porter should say something too," said Dad Abby. "That is, if he wants to." I stepped forward and began to say thank you for, but my throat got all itchy and I didn't want the Abbies to see me cry, so I stopped. "Keep going," said Abby, placing a hand on my shoulder. "That's it," I said, and then took a step back. "I just wanted to say thanks." Dad Abby reached out and held my hand, and the three of us stood like that for a bit as the not quite right smelling wind blew in off the ocean. "Can I put something in for me too?" asked Dad Abby. Abby said that would be all right as long as I was okay with it. Dad Abby squeezed my hand in hers. "Is that all right?" Dad Abby asked. "Can this be my funeral too?" I said sure, so Dad Abby reached into her sweatshirt pocket and pulled out a pen. "Does anyone have any paper?" she asked. Abby offered up an old receipt, and Dad Abby said that would be fine. "Well, here you go then," said Abby, handing Dad Abby the receipt. Dad Abby took it and scribbled something down on the back. She looked it over briefly for a second, crossed something out, and then dropped the receipt into the hole on top of the shoebox. We took hold of the shovels and, using the dirt we dug up, filled in the little grave. "What do we do now?" asked Abby. "I think we're supposed to put stones on top," said Dad Abby. Abby shivered. "Let's not," she said. "That feels too lasting."